this is our competition. And there's our 37. And there's a 37 DeSoto. So, beautiful event. Very nice turnout. Very, very good weekend. The weather has been excellent as can be. And you can see everything. I'm going to walk on over to the Buick and show you.
In the case of this car, this has coachwork by Joseph Fagoni of Paris. He was really what was called the father of the teardrop design, although he hated that being described on his cars. This particular car, you can see the influence of the teardrop design on the fenders of the car. Of course, it had this elaborate boat tail, and you have these incredible I guess you could say louvers on the cowl that are just mimicking speed on the automobile. Brad, you want to say a couple words about that particular car and where this car came from?
Well, it's fascinating about this car, and I think one of the most important things about it, it's actually been driven. In 2016, this car went on a Duesenberg tour in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And for Michiganders, you know that those roads up there can be a little dicey sometimes. This car has special teardrop fenders, steps under the doors, Chronos front bumper, and a rear bumper. That's just the design of this is amazing.
Congratulations to the Mans. Thank you so much for always sharing. Okay, our next class, these are the Gaslight cars. These are the early cars, pioneering automobiles. Many times they're referred to as the brass era cars, which describes the trim on the car. Brass era typically refers to the cars built before January of 1916, as recognized by the Horseless Carriage Club of America. Brass trim had begun to fade out by that time. It was replaced by nickel trim. Again, these are automotive pioneers. Brad, if you would tell us our cars coming up.
Our Lion Award winner, Don Onstad from Valley, Nebraska, 1910 Auburn Model X, touring by Auburn. Our next Lion Award winner are Andrew Harala and Kim Fox from Rochester, New York, 1903 Ford Model A Runabout by Wilson Carriage Company. And our best in class, Ron and Leanne Laird from Sebring, Florida, 1910 Oakland 30 Model 24 Runabout.
Our first car that we have here is the Auburn Model X. This is the only Auburn Model X that's known to exist. This particular car the Auburn family was really the outgrowth of the Eckert Carriage Company around 1900 in Auburn, Indiana, obviously where the name came from. Auburn, we'll talk about Auburn quite a bit later, because once E.L. Cord took over, what was a very conservative company changed rather dramatically. The Ford that you see is a Model A. This wasn't the Model A that perhaps most of us are used to. This is the first or original Model A. This was Henry Ford's second attempt at a mass-produced car. I think there were about, how many made? 400, something like that, of these? 450 of these made. This was about $650 in 1903. It was a rather expensive car, and you can see the sloping back of the car. For $100 extra, you could buy a back seat that bolted onto that, and you could increase the capacity of the car by another 2 people. The third car is a name that has passed us as well. This is an Oakland. Most of you are familiar with Pontiac. Oakland was actually the third car line in Billy Durant's General Motors. He used Buick and Oldsmobile to launch the company. A year later, he joined Oakland with the company. What happened, however, many years later, GM thought it was prudent to have companion cars. Cadillac had LaSalle, Oldsmobile had Viking, Buick had Marquette, and Oakland's companion car was Pontiac. Unfortunately, what happened was Oakland lost favor. The Pontiac name became prominent, and the car was then named Pontiac, and the Oakland name was phased out, I believe, after about 1924. 31, don't ask me anything, right? 31, that's why you're here. Great car, lovely runabout, and again, congratulations to all of our winners in the Gaslight or early car category. We have one more award, okay?
We have another award. The 03 Ford Model A also wins our Most Significant Ford Award.
As it should. Brad, do you have anything you want to say about that particular car, the Model A?
Yes, well, this particular car was originally sold in Buffalo, New York to Dr. Charles Welch of the Welch Grape Juice Company. It's always neat when you hear about a famous history with cars. Everyone usually finds that interesting. It was on display in the N.R. Boyce Ford dealership in Ovid, New York for over 65 years. And in 1953, the Ford Motor Company borrowed this car for a special display commemorating their golden anniversary. The current owners actually traded a house for that car. Thanks very much.
An interesting thought I should have mentioned as the cars are going by. You notice the Model A had white tires. Black, the color is added to rubber to make it appear black. That is actually the correct and real color of what rubber is. So if you see many early cars, they have a white or a grayish kind of appearance to the tires. That is the correct color. The black is merely just additive to that to give it that color.
American Popular Class E. We have our Lion Award winner, Tom Griffith from Verona, Wisconsin, in a 1937 DeSoto S3 Airstream convertible coupe. Our other Lion Award winner, James Stadler, Nashville, Tennessee, in a 1937 Chrysler Imperial C14 convertible coupe. Best in Class, H.B. Calder from Henderson, Nevada, 1941 Graham Hollywood sedan.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the cars that you see in front of you. First of all is the Chrysler Imperial here. This was Chrysler's top-of-the-line car at this particular time. The DeSoto, which is the next car that you see, was actually a, I guess you could say, kind of the jump-up line as far as the Chrysler products. Plymouth being the least expensive, then Dodge, then DeSoto, then Chrysler, then the Chrysler Imperial in that particular order. In the case of this DeSoto, an interesting thing, we're focusing on styling today. Ray Dietrich, who was the lead stylist at Packard, actually had much of the influence on the design of this particular car. The Studebaker that you see here is actually an award winner in terms of, you'll see on the side here, this particular car ran 25,000 miles in 23,000 minutes. It was a record holder at the time. Studebaker had 3 series. They had a Dictator, a Commander, and a president. Unfortunately, because of the negative connotation with the name Dictator because of Mussolini and Hitler, they changed the name of the car to Champion, which is kind of an interesting little footnote. The car that you see that is our class winner is a Graham Hollywood. You saw a Graham earlier, and many of you are saying, well, that looks like a Cord. Well, that's true because the Graham brothers bought the dies along with the Hupp family, and there was a Hupp Skylark and a Graham Hollywood, both of which used the tooling and the dies that were made to make the Cord bodies. Unlike, however, the Cord, which was a front drive car, this was a rear drive car, so you'll notice if you see it sitting next to a contemporary Cord, it sits much taller. Obviously does not have the hidden headlights, but it is still basically the body of the Cord automobile. These are really some stunning automobiles, and we want to congratulate and thank all of our car owners. Just a beautiful job. Brad, anything to add?
1928 Studebaker Commander that you were admiring won the This Car Matters Award from the HVA. It's their FIVA Award. It's come to us from the Studebaker National Museum from South Bend, Indiana, and it is a 1928 Studebaker Commander Roadster, as you noted.
Great cars. Congratulations to all of our winners. And thank you all for bringing your cars. If we can move on and roll to our next group of cars, we're ready to do so.
Gonna video as it takes out.
Please roll the next cars, next vehicles. Roll them, please.
Our next class we have coming is military motorcycles. Our Lion Award winner, Nelson Hurt from Berrien Springs, Michigan, in a 1944 Cushman 53 Airborne Scooter 5.3. And our best in class, David Peeler from Weddington, North Carolina, in a 1942 Harley-Davidson WLA.
The Cushman is kind of an interesting vehicle. These were scooters, the vehicle that has the trailer behind it. The reason these were chosen by the military was because of their lightweight and their sturdiness, they were able to be dropped from a parachute with paratroopers and who needed quick mobility and quick transportation. That was primarily the use of that vehicle. Very, very interesting. Brad knows quite a bit about Cushman, so I'll let him talk a little bit.
What's great also about Cushman's is there's a tremendous amount of club support for these. They made a lot of them, so you can go to shows all over, you can find parts. They're owned by a lot of enthusiasts, so it's really fantastic. For the Harley-Davidson, even though the Smithsonian Institute has many war records, those for the WLA motorcycle are really non-existent. What is known about this particular WLA is that it was actually a Russian Lend-Lease motorcycle and didn't really even come back to the United States until only about 8 years ago. It was owned by a Russian collector and we finally got it back here on our shores. So it's got a lot of really neat features on it. Thompson machine gun scabbard, saddlebags, blackout lights. When people collect military vehicles, a lot of the things that sort of go along with that are enthusiastic to be collected also, and this one certainly has it. Thank you very much.
You see here, the Talbot, this has coach work by Marcel Pertu. His chief stylist at the time was Georges Paulin. Paulin was not a student of the Teardrop design, which was really associated with Joseph Fagoni of Fagoni and Falaschi. But he, I don't want to use the words mimicked because this car is very different than his design, but again had that very sleek, very crazy wild aero design and just an incredible piece of automobile. You'll see it has a rather large sliding sunroof, which was somewhat fashionable in European cars at the time. The maroon car, which is in the middle, is an 8C 2300 Alpha. These were pure sports cars. They were designed by Vittorio Iano, who was the head designer and engineer at Alfa at the time. These cars would have been driven during the 30s by Enzo Ferrari, in particular, in the latter part of his career. This was a incredibly modern designed 8-cylinder engine. In fact, if we were just looking at that car and not the other cars in the group, it would be interesting to talk about just it, or just listening to it, because it sounds very much like a modern automobile. Very, very incredible automobile. Every race those cars literally were in at the time they won those races. And this has just got that dramatic bodywork by Viotti on it. Brad, anything you want to add?
I just think it's really interesting if we all see that when the Kellers are getting an award, it is a family affair, and they travel together and they enjoy these cars together, and it's really, really wonderful. All these cars to me are just incredibly exquisite. The Talbot Lago here, I mean, when you think of kind of a high point in French design, I mean, this is always the one that people think of. You could draw these things with your eyes closed. It's just nothing but swoops.
Just incredible, incredible automobiles. I can't emphasize more to all of you folks out there today. You are seeing, again, perhaps what are some of the finest automobiles in the world. And we can't thank the Keller family enough. Arturo and Deborah, just magnificent cars. We thank you for being our collector of the year, and thank you for celebrating your spectacular collection with us here today.
Absolutely, very well deserved.
Our next cars.